This show does not come with instructions. Think at your own risk. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
You have to remember, President Trump was the president who authorized Operation Warp Speed and funded $18 billion for the military to implement a mass atrocity. That was President Trump. So in the about 6 weeks, it was early summer, I said on the Solari report, I believe that the bankers have chosen Trump because he's the man who can get conservatives to go along with the control grid. Using immigration election fraud, he will be able to sell the digital ID and the big tech solutions. And that's exactly what's happened. Although the reason we started to keep a collection at Solari, and everybody can read it by going to Solari and looking up just put control grid in the search box or go to latest and you'll find it because we update it every week. They moved so quickly. Even I was surprised at how quickly they were moving to implement the different pieces of both programmable money and digital ID and other aspects of the system, including the data centers and the AI implementation. And at the speed at which they moved, starting literally the day after the inauguration with the $500 billion Stargate proposal for the data centers, and it was very quick. It was clear to me that someone had been working for a very long time on preparing everything and being ready to go.
Well, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, if you want to look at it with reason and common sense, I like what Catherine Austin Fitts had to say, because we have to start really looking at things with common sense. So, yeah. Anyway. Welcome, Kate Daly Show. And of course, it's Tuesday. I did an earlier broadcast with Chris Ann Hall, constitutional expert and attorney. And then now we're doing a second broadcast. This is the real broadcast of the show. So the other one was a special broadcast. And this one is with Dr. Duke Pesta and the headlines and everything else. And so welcome, Kate Daly Show at your service. Hi, Duke. Duke?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and welcome. I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. How you doing?
I'm good. There's been so many headlines since I last talked to you that it's kind of like, what do you pick to, there's just so many things that we could chat about. President Trump had some really interesting comments today about civilization as a whole. We can start there, or we can really extend into anything that's been on your mind. So anything that you're talking about too. Dr. Duke has a show called The Dr. Duke Show. So where do you want to start?
I'm in the same quandary you are in. I mean, just throw a dart. I mean, it's, I will say this before we even get started. It does seem to me that the clarity, we're getting much more clarity about who the left and the right are. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but and maybe that means we're heading for some kind of civil war. But it seems to me that I know that I absolutely believe, I think you're absolutely right, that people are pulling strings, that there are people beyond our ability to see who are navigating and choreographing a lot of what we're seeing. I believe that. But what we're seeing at the levels that we are able to see is that the polarity is just getting worse and worse. And I think this is true for people on the right, on the left too, especially on the left, that nobody is willing to believe anything, no matter how much you can prove it to them, that people are so locked in for whatever their political position is,
right?
That you can't convince anybody of anything in this country anymore. Reason and critical thinking seem to be a rapidly dying thing.
I had a guy on Facebook. It was so funny. He said, you've grown negative. So therefore I can't listen because you've grown negative. And I'm like, I just bring you the reality. It's your problem if you can't accept reality, but I'm just trying to relay the reality. I can't alter the truth for happy thoughts and happy pills. I wish I could. I wish the show was a dose of Valium every day, but when people come, it's for truth. It's not for happy pills. So I guess I have a tough time sometimes with people that are that dense or that sort of just can't handle anything. And I wonder when we became such little waifs, like little, little delicate flowers that we can't hear anything other than what we wish to hear or what we've decided what is truth. And we want to just hear that because, when I've been doing this show for 16 years, this is all about me bringing to you what I've found, whether you like it or not, whether, it doesn't matter what's going on. Usually people will tune in because they want to know, okay, well, I've heard this guy and I've heard that gal, but I want to know what your take is, right? Because they know I'm not going to BS them. But it's so funny to me that people have because you were just talking about how we've become so staunch in our perspectives that it's hard to see anything else or listen to anyone else. And it's almost as if everyone is moving around in a little circle and they just want to be told what they already think. And if you don't tell them what they already have decided to think, then somehow you're the bad guy or you're wrong. And it's like, take in all thought, take in all content. Make sure you're listening to a lot of different kinds of voices because we need to have the truth emerge from all of this. And it's very difficult if you get so set in your ways. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, and I actually think there are ways you can explain this. I think that is, you asked, well, how have people become such delicate doilies? And I think part of it is a couple of bullet points here. Number one, the education system has failed miserably over the last 30 to 50 years in this country. Yeah. So we no longer have people whose worldview is anchored in actual history, in broad reading, people who are aware of what's come before us.
Yeah.
They don't understand, they have never studied philosophy. They don't know how to decide what is useful and not useful in culture, number one. Okay. And that's true. Why is it that the under 40s, the 35 and youngers, are wildly enthusiastic for socialism, while the rest of us know it's largely BS. And that's one of the reasons. And it's not an accident. They've dumbed down the schools for generations now because they want a helpless and a confused and a desperate citizenry who needs government to do everything for them, number one. And number two, this was absolutely on steroids with not just the 24 news clip with the technology and the computers, but now with the phones that you can carry, the smartphones, right? I mean, I see this. I mean, even you and I we didn't grow up with this technology, but it is amazing how addicting it is. I mean, I'm sympathetic to the kids. I have a hard time putting it down. Here's a fact. Before I got my first smartphone, as a university professor, I was reading, believe it or not, about 100 books a year, and partly for my job and keeping up with the kids. I was teaching the books. I was reading about 100 books a year. Last year, I read 7. And the reason for that is because I'm on this damn phone all the time. And
so true.
It's crack. It's mind crack. And the problem with the phone is that, like you said, it is a vanity device. Most of my college kids never use their phones for educational purpose. I have kids who read things on their phones, and I give them a quiz on what they had to read, and they won't even look up a word. They won't take 5 seconds to look up on their phones the definition of a word. They'll just skip it and just go around it. And I have to tell them, like the old man, when I was your age, I had to get my butt in a car and drive to a library and go find a dictionary. Yeah. All you got to do is and they won't do it. And so the phones are vanity things. It's all about selfies and taking pictures of what you eat. And it's also even more than that. It is, like you said, it is a device that will allow you to find everything in the world that already strokes your ego, everything in the world that already approves of what you think. And you spend your whole day getting validation from people, in cases, bots in more cases, who aren't even real. And that's the vanity of this.
No, it's so true. It's so true. And, the bots bully, and then it talks people out of critical thinking, which is even more dangerous. So you're dealing with something that's fake, but it's causing you to to skirt your comments or not say something because you're afraid of people coming after you online. Here's another one too that I've noticed that is the strangest thing to me, because this is where we've evolved into too, is so I have all these people. I'll give you a for instance. There's all these people running for office as county commissioner, okay, in my city. They're all terrible. There isn't even one of them. They all reek, okay? There isn't one of them that I would trust babysitting my dead goldfish, okay? There isn't even one of them, all right? People are having such a hard time with me saying that. They're coming after me because they have to have somebody good in the running, and they have to believe that there's somebody good in the running. Their brain cannot formulate a situation in which all the candidates completely are the worst people ever. They suck. They're terrible. They've already shown who they are. They're awful. And I am just marveling at the fact that everyone comes to me and goes, but I can't, who do I vote for? I go, you know what? I wouldn't vote for any of them. I can't in good conscience put a vote behind any of them because they're disgusting. And I've seen what they're capable of, and they're liars. They're straight up liars. People can't formulate the idea that somebody good isn't running. There's just this weird kind of stopgap to this very interesting idea that, of course, one of the candidates has to be good. I'm like, well, what if they all suck? And then what do you do? What if they're all terrible? What if they're all bought?
That's the old dilemma. Hold your nose and vote, or don't vote at all. I mean, I understand
I'm like, it's weird because people can't hear it. They just cannot hear me say that.
No. And the broader point here is that this has been a fact for a long time. The people who want political power are exactly the wrong people to have it.
Yes.
And so the entire class of politicians, they're vying for. I mean, I go back to my point about vanity and how we live in an age of tremendous intellectual vanity. Nobody ever talks about it. Vanity is always a link to, a woman's looking into a mirror and admiring herself. But I think the worst kind of vanity is intellectual vanity. You know where you see that? You see at the universities. The universities are so monolithic politically. They are so far to the left. They shut out any voice that is not theirs. And that kind of vanity makes them stupid.
Yeah.
They no longer have to defend my colleagues all the leftist garbage. They don't even bother.
Right.
They're right because they have the power. And the more they isolate themselves, the more out of touch they become. And you see that same kind of vanity in Hollywood. You see it with the tech moguls. You see it.
Yes.
I mean, it's over and over again. And so, but now with all the technology and how everybody can blog and everybody has their own website and everybody has their TikTok, the vanity that was reserved from the vapid actors and actresses like De Niro, for instance, that clown. And so now we all get to be that. We all have that. And here's another thing I'll throw at you. Okay. I'd like your thought on this. The one thing that puzzles me is perhaps why I'm a conservative, but I don't see conservatives getting on social media and on the internet where it's forever and doing the kind of screaming and screeching and yelling and threatening. And I mean, I don't see them doing it. I see the left does it. These maniacs on the left, they'll threaten to kill you. They get on there and they want to guillotine all concern. I don't see my side of the line isn't doing that. And the only thing I can think is that the conservative still has more of a life outside of the internet than the left does. More of us, I think, read, and more of us ignore the groupthink stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of people on the right. There aren't a lot of moderate Democrats anymore. They've all lurched radical. I mean, but there is in the Republican and the conservative movement there, you can find places of relative content. And so to me, that's the difference. It's why I usually will hold my nose and vote for the Republican, usually for that reason. I mean,
Go ahead.
Good.
Well, I would say write in a candidate. If they all suck, they're all bought, they're all liars, which that's what I found because I know these people and they're liars. They're straight up liars, all of them. Then write in a candidate because you have to live with your conscience and you have to look yourself in the mirror. I have a hard time now because of the depth of the lying and the scumbaggery. I have a tough time just holding my nose now. I
Yeah, I
used to
know.
be able to do that. I can't do it anymore because I know how terrible these people are. They say, I love the Constitution. They wear their flag shirt and their flag boots and their flag hat and their flag everything. And then they turn around and stab people in the back like it's no one's business. I can't watch that. I can't see that anymore. I just can't do it. So write in a candidate. If you have to vote, write in a candidate. But what's crazy to me, Duke, is that people can't even get to the idea, not even the idea, that all the people that want the power, that want to run for office, and those that get in completely suck. They can't get to that point because in their mind, they have to have some sort of hero and some sort of leader. So here's the difference between me and other hosts out there. I am not your thought leader. I will give you what I think is happening. I will tell you what my gut says. And so far, I got a pretty good rate of calling it out pretty early on. But that doesn't mean I'm always right. And I'm not a leader. So don't look at me like I'm your leader or anyone is your leader, because what we have done in society is take these people on the right, on right conservative radio or TV or whatever, and on the left. And then we allow them to lead us into this thought projection of what we're supposed to think. On the right, you're supposed to listen to these three voices. And on the left, these three voices. These three voices might screech a lot. These three voices maybe aren't. But again, we have to take back our own power and say, I'm my own leader. I am the person. I have to take in all of these thoughts to come up with what I think, not I want to be led today. So it's so funny to me how we've evolved. And you nailed down, our phones, and then of course, how the current state of social media has molded us. I've talked about elected officials and our desire to say, we have to have somebody that is good when maybe they're not good. And we have to kind of change our thinking. But, I interviewed KrisAnne Hall today, and she was saying, this is the principle behind birthright citizen. This is the principle behind war. Did you notice I never mentioned the word Trump? Because it has nothing to do with him. It's about us understanding the principles and how that office is basically used and guided for a purpose. Okay. And I have to agree with her. We don't think in those terms. We are dialed into personality. We're dialed into what to think by that personality. And we focus on personality. We focus on personality, commentators on the right and commentators on the left. And you're right about the screechiness, because when KrisAnne Hall was talking, she didn't go into screechiness. She didn't go, she didn't use, the I want to kill you kind of, this crazy, crazy leftist bot media mainstream stuff. And she also on the right didn't go into, she felt like she was going to, ostracize the audience because she wasn't giving Trump this big hurrah. And it's like, it has nothing to do with him. Dial into principle. And then you don't have to do it either one of those. You don't have to, be in love with Trump, and you don't have to say, I want to kill him. You can actually remove him from the equation and just look at the principles that are being done right now and how Congress has separated themselves out of calling for war when they're supposed to, and all of these changes that we're seeing and all of these concepts that we're completely illiterate about, and really look at the issue. And then also understand that maybe there are people that aren't going to save you in this, and that maybe the people have to do it again, just like we did in 1776.
Yeah, I think too. Another thing that is a clarifying thing.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we know that was in 1996 that the Democrats removed God from the platform.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it's going on 30 years now where the Democrats have disavowed God as a platform in the Democrat Party.
Yeah,
and I think some of the sanity that you see compared to the left on the right is because we do still have that. And I think that if you have God at the center of your life, or a higher power that you really do believe in, then you don't get as hysterical. I think you're more even keel. And so again, I mean, there are a lot of Republicans with a lot of problems, but I'm just simply saying that the progressives and the Democrats are utterly unmoored. All they have is politics. I mean, they don't like family. They don't like hunting and fishing. They don't like going out to eat steaks. They don't like church. I mean, they
Yeah.
hate
Yeah.
everything,
Nothing
right?
spiritual. Yes. Yes.
But we, I know you. I mean, you love to go hiking. You love to get away and travel. You like to get up in the mountains.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we have outlet. You go to church. We have important things that demonstrate to us how tacky and low rent politics usually is.
Well, government isn't our God. And to them, government is God. So there's a huge, very stark difference between two kinds of people. We're both led. We both have problems deciphering info and understanding truth and understanding what we're supposed to know. But you did nail down a distinct difference between the two groups. Yes, I'm going to agree with you on that. Yes.
Yeah. And again, I mean, if the Democrat Party didn't exist, the American people would hate the Republicans more than anything. It's a good thing for the Republicans that the Democrats are around, because it's a little bit less reason to hate them.
Well, it makes us look good because they're so
bad. It's not our virtue. It's just how crazy they are. And I was absolutely stunned a couple of days ago on CNN with Harry Enton. I would have bet a year's pay that it wouldn't have been true. But he pointed out that right now the favorability of Republicans is 5% more than Democrats. And when you look at the last 4 election cycles, Democrats were up by 15-18%. This has almost never happened,
right,
in a lifetime. Where Republicans, even after a year and a half of Trump, still have a considerable favorability rating over the Democrats, who are underwater.
Yes. But at the same time, most of it's all controlled by APEC. So I don't know that, I mean, it's insane. It's insane. Let's take a caller, shall we? Hi, caller. You're on with Dr. Duke.
Hi, Dr. Duke and Kate. It's great to be with you on the internet. Dr. Duke, I interviewed you on a podcast. This is Kevin Williams. How are you?
Good, Kevin. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. So I want both of your opinions on this, and I apologize for getting off topic a little bit, but I've been studying Agenda 2030 and these smart cities. Kate, I really am excited to hear your opinion. I am noticing, and I've been in radio, and I know you have too, obviously. So I am starting to notice these little, what I don't want to call them micro broadcasters, but they are community broadcasters. For example, we've got a station in Salt Lake. I don't know if I should give out the frequency, but it's on a frequency that if you go, let's say, north of Salt Lake far enough.
Okay, but what did they say? Because we got to hurry. What did they say?
Okay, well, do you think that these are signs of these smart cities, these community broadcasters that broadcasting at small wattage and the transmitters on the rooftop or whatever?
Are they signs of it?
Yeah, or signs of Agenda 2030 or signs of something else, because this, to me, just having been in broadcasting, it's just weird.
Well, most all of radio has been taken over by the distributors that work for the club. So when I say the club, I'm talking about the CIA. So in radio itself, anytime you have a large audience, I've said this over and over and over again, a big audience, you're usually there by design, and it's been completely taken over now. So if you have any fresh thoughts or you reveal too much truth, and boy, have I found this to be true, they take you off of radio. So then you go to specialized broadcasts or stations that aren't that big or whatever. I don't know that it's a sign of smart cities. I think smart cities are a sign of themselves. I mean, we have all the infrastructure going in right now. So I'm not quite sure if that's the case, that's reflective of that. I think but thank you for the call. I think it's reflective of the fact that we're fighting against this machine that holds the cards of all the media. That's our problem right now. And so people are still fighting against it, but I would say in smart cities, you might even see versions when they go into full smart cities of Agenda 30, you might see versions of pirate type radio. So I think that we'd be very smart to design those types of shows and things like that can be heard on the underground. No matter how oppressed people are, they usually find a version of like pirate, right? Pirate radio, pirate whatever, pirate newsletter, pirate everything. We've had movies about it from World War II. They always find a way to communicate, and that might be one of them. But I'm not quite sure it's a sign of a smart city. It's mostly just a sign of us trying to fight back against the media machine. Duke?
You and Kevin, who I know, you guys are much more acquainted with broadcasting than I am. I would simply say that I think, like everything else, the small people with their phones up on the roof, their radios, I think that you've got both things going on. On the one hand, you've got a lot of people who are trying to get their voice out there, because their voices are being canceled or muted. I think that's absolutely true. We know that the big social media groups are still dragging people and anchoring them, and if not outright canceling, certainly make them impossible to monetize their videos. It's happening to us at Freedom Project still after all this time.
Right.
On the other hand, I think the progressives and the globalists have already infiltrated that world. They're not going to leave it alone to the individualists who want to stand apart. They're also manipulating these smaller venues and these more grassroots kinds of radio, and they're poisoning that well as well. So I think it works both ways.
Agenda 2030, people are going to try to do the privatized things, the guy on the rooftop. We're going to try. Agenda 30 wants to battle that, and they want to root all of that out so that just propaganda is heard. But like I said, people have a will, and that will is to freedom. And so people will always, even in Nazi Germany, tried to rebel against that machine. Were they killed? Yes, but they tried. And people always will have a will to speak up against the propaganda, because when people hear propaganda, there's something that doesn't sit right. When you hear truth, there's something in you that says, I know that's true. Whether you want to look or not, it's kind of like going back to the politicians where they all suck. It's like, do I want to look or not? That's up to you. It's what I guess you can handle. I guess we're delicate waifs, but still the truth is there to be known. And so people will always fight against this machine of propaganda, no matter how heavy it gets. And it gets really heavy with 2030 and 2050 agenda. By the way, why is there no 2040 agenda? Has anyone ever thought of that? I don't know, just throwing that out there. So
my analogy of it's not a perfect one about what Kevin brought up, but think about it. We know that the left wants to suppress religion, particularly Western religion, and especially Christianity.
Yes.
We know that has to go. And so ordinarily, the analogy to the lone radio guy is your local church. And so the left has figured out, right, that the local church is a very dangerous place. It's a place where people gather and they have shared views about God. And so look what's happened in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
How many ways the trans wackadoodles, the anarchists have completely taken over so many churches across the country and turned them into places that are co-opting Jesus to become radical lefty. And so that grows every day.
Oh, yeah, that's very, very, it's true. I mean, there's lots of forms. It's like, people figured that that Christianity was something that is a wonderful thing. I'm a Christian and follower of Christ. Okay. And what's amazing is to see how co-opted that is too now, because they figured out that too many people were trying to do too much good. And then they figured out that a good way to infiltrate that would be where no one's watching, and they can infiltrate and they can get people on our Christian side to adopt different and new ideas that probably aren't as Christian. So it's kind of amazing how it all works. And I see the leftist view of religion. It's really sad. And basically government becomes the God. God is replaced by government, and this total belief in government. So when you say the deep state, they just look at you with a blank stare. And then on the right, we don't understand how co-opted it is on the right. And they're trying to get Christians to adopt ideas to be very for something they probably shouldn't be. So it is very, we need a spiritual awareness more than ever when it comes to deciphering truth. I mean, without it, I can't imagine how lost people will be because of the mixed messages and infiltration and the desire to basically change things so that people can't understand what's really happening. So it's going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. It's tough for me right now, even doing this show, because if I'm not rah Trump, then a section of people won't listen. I'm not a loony leftist, so that whole section won't listen. And to tell you the truth, I'm okay with that because I think they're so lunatic and so ill-informed, and it's okay. And then I've got this group of people that are sensing that truth is there to be known. And so what is it? And I hope this show offers that sort of idea that we can get to that truth by having really good conversations about how warped things are and how warped and brainwashed things have become for us on a daily basis. And it's not easy.
I see this in my university kids. I can't even get that far. I mean, we're far away from that.
Wow.
I would be happy if some of my kids, 22, 23-year-old kids, came to the realization that more than one thing can be true. In other words, Donald Trump can be doing some good things with also recognizing that there are other things that he's doing that are not so good.
Right.
Because that before you can get to what you want, we've got to drill into their heads that you can't decide definitively what you think on one voice or one issue. I mean, you think about I think the best examples are the left. I mean, the whole Queers for Palestine stuff, right? I mean, that's a classic example where their ideology requires them to support the radical Islamists no matter what they do and no matter who they kill, because they are, according to the left, victims on the victim hierarchy. They're actually more persecuted than the queers are. So they have to stand for that, even though those Islamists hate them even more than they hate us. Yeah. And so that inability to see, okay, you believe because you're a lefty that somehow Islam is being persecuted by the whole world and especially Christianity. Okay, you believe that, but they still hate gay people. And unlike Americans who you hate and Christian Americans who you really hate, we don't persecute gays. We don't hang them from cranes from the middle of downtown. And so that's the kind of stuff that I think the American people look at that and they say, how can we possibly believe anything you say when you are so immature in your ability to discern what is happening?
All right. So let's go to what Trump put out today for the 8:00 deadline tonight, because that's coming. Okay. And it was, he wrote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." What was he talking about? A whole civilization? Because a lot of people think it's Iran. They think it's Iran's government or Iran's tyranny. Okay. And you know me, I have some different thoughts on Iran because I think we own them and we own them as a bad guy. But push that aside. What does he mean? A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want it to happen, but it probably will.
I think there's three things going on. Number one, he is blustering and saber rattling, excuse me, because he wants this to be over. I think he wants it to be over. I think he wants a deal. He always wants a deal. He's made his point. I think he wants to get out of there. And I don't think that's a bad instinct. I think he's right. Number one. Number two, he made a mistake when he used the word civilization. That's not what he meant. I don't think he meant a civilization. I think what he meant to say is a way of life in Iran is going to go away, right? I think that's what he meant. Because he said many times, and I think he believes it, and I think he understands it, that the Persian people that preceded the mullahs was a very open place. I mean, it was one of the freest countries for Muslim women in the world. And there's a lot of history and a lot of wisdom in those cultures. That's what he wants to bring back, or at least allow the Iranians to choose. So number two is, I think he used the word with civilization. I think that was a mistake. Using that word. Yes, and number three, and this is the last one. Okay. I think he is adamant that if you don't settle with us quick and you don't open the strait, then you leave us no choice but to pound you past the ability to fight anymore. And I think that's what he's talking about. I mean, I'm trying to give you a way to take in Iran to kill, to still be able to navigate those waters and sell your oil to the Chinese and perhaps rebuild your civilization in your country. I'm giving you this chance, but if you're still going to fight me on this, because it's your only weapon, right? Then we're going to make it impossible for you. I think that's what his thinking is. I don't think any one of those things is necessarily, given where we are right now, if sooner or later, I'll tell you what I like about what Trump's doing, and we'll see what he does tonight.
Okay.
I like the fact that when he draws a red line, and he doesn't back down from it. And so, how many times have we seen George Bush and Obama and Biden, if you do this, we're gonna, and then we didn't do anything. And then 3 months later, here's our red line. I think that one of the most interesting aspect of Trump, and one of the reasons why a lot of people voted for him, is when he says something, he does it. And so I don't think Donald Trump is going to just back off of this unless, and I think the Iranians know it. I think they're going to take this right down to the wire. And then they're going to try to get out of it, because this is not Biden. This isn't Obama. He's already demonstrated that he's got all the pieces in play to make you pay in much worse ways. And that's, by the way, so many of the lefties are fighting it, right? Because they know, I think the lefties know. And while they're threatening to arrest Hedsketh for war crimes, and now they're trying to impeach Trump already for war crimes, that's their way of saying they know that Donald Trump will do this if they don't get cooperation from the Iranians. And so this is the last gap of the Western lefties, the Islamists in our own country, to try to stop what they know, because this is not a Joe Biden thing where you're going to say it. When they cross the line, you do nothing. Something really bad is going to happen if they don't make an honest offer, even just to keep talking before this evening. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Interesting. Well, I think a lot of it is, well, let's say I'm right. If we actually do own Israel, which we're the ones that put Khomeini in, and we're the ones that put the Shah in, and so I don't think we lost control anywhere along that timeline. And we did it for a reason. We wanted to make the bad bad. So we had to make a bad guy a bad guy. So we had to bring in tyranny of Khomeini. And then ever since then, it's been a very tyrannical kind of regime with that country. But I don't think that we don't own it. So I think that we basically get to maneuver there in the government the way we want to. And I think the rest of it is smoke and mirrors. I think the rest of it is laying down a distraction for a lot of money changing hands over there, and a lot of money being sent to Israel, and a lot of people not questioning it, and a lot of, like, just by basically at the beginning of March, sending another $4 billion in military assistance to Israel, bypassing Congress. We're not even going through Congress anymore. We're just sending money. But our conservative base won't say anything about it because Trump's in. So we have to be able to look at all of these things, and there's somebody saying, I said we own Israel, we own Iran. Israel owns us and we own Iran. So, but I think that if I'm right, then a lot of this is theater. A lot of this is theater being played out in front of us while a lot of money is getting laundered. I hate to say that, but I really do think that's true. I think that a lot of money is getting laundered. A lot of money gets laundered through NASA too. And I think that there's a lot of money flying around, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And we get caught up in the theater of it because it's what is being said by Trump and what's not being said by Trump. And what did he mean? What did he not mean? I think it's a lot of theater. What do you think about that statement?
I mean, one of the reasons why we have good conversations is because I know in principle that what you say is true. I know there's a deep state. I know there's a conspiracy. I know that. I just don't know how specific I understand it.
Mm.
What you said is certainly possible,
Mm-hmm.
but there are also ways you can argue against it too. There are so from my perspective, I'm just the reality is that there are rocks that we can't look behind yet, and we will. And I think that I've listened to you. There's a lot of what you have said is coming. You said at the beginning of the show that you have a good track record. You do. You really do. You have called things before they've happened. You've explained things before we've seen them. And so I have to give you a lot of credit for it. I mean, but I don't think I'm in a position yet to cede to everything you just said. I mean, I am confused a little bit about we own them and then they own them, and so
well,
we
I
own
think
them
we
too.
control. So I think we control what Iran does, and I think we control who leads Iran. And I think we know when we're putting a powder keg in somewhere because we want there to be a powder keg, just like they did with Iran and Khomeini. Khomeini was an asset. He was living over in France and he was definite asset. There's been so much proven about that. And then we slipped him in as a leader, even though he wasn't even living in Iran. We brought him over to Iran and basically hyped him up in their media over there. So I think we have control over their media. I also think we have control over who leads Iran. And so when I say own, I mean we have control over who is in those positions. And so when we in the media, when Trump is talking about Iran as if they're kind of an isolated, their own country and they're completely rogue, I do not believe that. I don't believe that at all. Not even a little bit, not even a smidge. I think that
I'll tell you where my
it's not
hang-up
rogue.
is. There certainly you could be right about that, but I don't believe Donald Trump thinks that or knows that. I don't think he.
I think you're right. I actually think Trump believes what the people around him tell him.
I think so too.
Yes.
Now again,
Okay.
I believe that. I think Trump sincerely thinks that this is a problem.
Yes.
I think there are good reasons to think that this is a problem.
Right. Let me take the call real fast.
Sure.
But I will say this. There is a group that control this country and Israel and the leaders of the world that put in their puppetry in each country, and that they're making the decisions, and they don't have an allegiance to America or Israel. They're basically the deep state that utilize the pieces of Israel and America to play up against each other or play for each other and play up against Iran, just like they do with Ukraine and Russia. I think that has been owned for a long time, but we don't want to see it because we want to believe there's good guys and bad guys. But I think there's a group that actually has separated away from any country. They're a country all to themselves, and they operate in each country with the pieces.
Right before you take the caller, really quick. Do you have a name for that? Would you?
The deep state. I think that there's about 300 plus that run that and run those decisions. Not only the Bilderberg, the Bilderberg groups, but there's a concerted effort as they meet right in front of our faces as they meet to kind of do their dealings. But it's based on money and control. It's not based on allegiance to a country. It's not based on patriotism. It's not based on anything. It's solely based on money and control. So I think that's why they're able to separate themselves out.
And that's what the John Birch Society would call the broad conspiracy.
Yes, very much so. Okay, let's take the caller. Hi, caller. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being patient.
Greetings, Kate.
Hi.
It's Dr. Dave. I believe that we're looking at a guy in the White House who takes bad information, but he's used to playing poker where he likes to bluff, and people that are not poker players, they don't fall for the bluff, or if anything, they believe what you're saying and they plan accordingly. Okay. So look at the facts. He said they were going to take Cuba. And then what happens? You see a tanker full of oil from Russia cruise past Florida on down to Cuba, escorted. They didn't talk about it. It had 2 escorts. They were not above the waterline, though. So why did the U.S. not stop that tanker and seize it as they did the Venezuelans? Because it had escorts. But they're not talking about that. The government, the president, whoever's in charge, has classified the number of deaths. They're not telling you the truth about the number of Americans that have died. They're not going to. They're trying to get these young men to believe, oh, we went in and we rescued these guys. That's BS. If you look at the crash site, those C-130s didn't blow up. They crash landed. Look at the props. Look at the props. They're bent back. They were rotating when they hit the ground. They dug in. Now, yes, you can do that if you land wheels up. Yes, you can still bend your props, but the reality is that we're not getting the truth, and the young men out there, you're right. It's a show. But,
yeah. Thank you.
But look at the thing. Look at the fact. The strait is not closed. They had, 3 Russian warships, and I think it was 3 Chinese warships go through the strait last week, as well as at least a dozen tankers full of oil. Iranian oil going to China. So the strait is open. It's just not open for the United States.
Okay. But and thank you for the call. I really appreciate the call. Look, we get 10% of our oil from there, and Europe as of 2020 gets 0. So they're really playing up the strait. That's why I think a lot of this is theater. And, forgive me, but I'm about to talk about the space thing right now. Look, I think that's why they did this little space run, even though I know we can't breach the Van Allen belts. They're doing this space run around the moon. What cracks me up is this is all part of the same game they've been playing for a long time. We had Vietnam, so then we go to the moon, right? We had Vietnam, so then we have to have patriotism rebuilt. This is sort of the same thing. We go to war unconstitutionally. We're doing things for Israel. We are basically, fighting these fights we shouldn't be in. And then all of a sudden we have a little trip around the moon to make everybody feel super good. And the thing about it is for over 50 years now, NASA has told us that we didn't have to go back to the moon because we already did that and done that. The problem with that statement is that now we're going around the moon and acting like it's some big, wonderful thing that we're doing. So I guess it was important that we went back. Otherwise, they wouldn't be saying we can't go back because why? Because we don't have to. Been there, done it. And so they've been saying that on their website since 1972. So I'm just saying that a lot of times things are used for patriotism, okay? And things are used to sort of get us emotional about everything instead of looking at everything the way we should. That's my 2 cents. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm feeling and thinking right now, is that I'm looking at this little trip around the moon and I'm like, oh yeah, why don't you just land on it? And so, but they can't. So they can't do it. And so, again, we're just being brainwashed to the hilt. And I don't know how else to say it other than being so blunt about that. And people hate when I say that because they just want to believe. NASA is also a money laundering. It's money laundering to the hilt, and we just don't see it. But that's me. And I know Dr. Pesta does not agree with me on this at all. So don't take my thoughts and attach them to him.
I will agree with you. I have a hard time with that one.
Yeah.
I do think we can walk on the moon. I think we can, and this is the purpose of this was not to walk on the moon. It was to get farther in space than we ever had, and to see the part of the moon that we had not seen. And I look around me, honestly. This is my 2 cents. I respect what you said. My 2 cents. I mean, you think about all the ways that the moon program from the 1960s all through today has created so many things that we use to better our civilizations. I mean, the exploration of space to the degree that it's done it has given incredible technological leaps for us. And so that's a hard one for me.
I knew it would be. That's why I said that, because
no. And look, I
don't believe it at all.
I have not been as steeped into all of this as you have been. I don't know.
I only believe we can go so far. We can only go up. I think it's like 400 feet or so. We can't I can't remember the measurement, but you can only go up so far. And I think they embellish it to the hilt. I really do. I go back to the original moon landing, what we saw as the moon landing. And I still can't believe we actually believed that. And then it was at prime time, that it just happened to land right at prime time. I think it was 4:00 on a Sunday, so everyone could see it. it. And it was just perfectly timed to land at the right time. And not when everyone was at work the next day. No, just on a Sunday. So everyone had to get around their TV and watch it. And I think there were so many lies told. And I think NASA has always been a money launderer. But I think that it's hard for us to see it. My opinion. I know you disagree. So it's okay.
But that also means that all those other countries with space programs, from India to China, and the Russians for that matter, was there actually a what do they call that? The space lab? Is that still there? Or is that made up too?
I think it's BS. I really do. I think a trip to Mars is BS. I think it's all BS. But that's me. I mean, I'm looking at things through a lens, and I have to say through a lens. It's not an agenda. It's just through a lens of this is how they operate. This is how they sell us on things. Going back in history, the moon landings ended right when Vietnam ended. So I'm looking back at that parallel, and I'm saying, there's something very wrong with this. We obviously have apparatuses that we can't penetrate, like the Van Allen belt. So we didn't have enough fuel to even go over 239,000 miles and have no problem coming back. It's just too many weird things were sold to us that we couldn't have done back then. And I think that's why they didn't go back for 50 years. They still haven't gone back. We're still not landing on the moon. Now we're going around it. And I think it's really easy for them to show us CGI photos. I think it's always been easy for them to sell us on it because we don't have the capability to go up and see it for ourselves. So I think that NASA's always been used.
My only response to that is that the number of people would have to be lying. The
not
number
really.
of people,
not really.
In all these countries and all the ones, all the Chinese are doing it, the Indians are doing it.
Let me put it this way, Duke. My own father worked on the capsule. Okay. Straight out of the Navy. He worked on the capsule, and he will tell you, okay, he's not doing well right now, and he's almost 92. He'll tell you that, well, he worked on the capsule, therefore it must have been real. Well, the thing is he didn't. That's all that happened. He worked on a capsule. You can keep a lot of people working on a lot of things, thinking they're contributing to something because they see it on a soundstage, and they're told that it's the reality. So I think you could actually tell a lot of people, and they say, well, I worked on this and I worked on that and I was in the control room. It doesn't actually mean it really happened, though, because lots of people can be lied to. So I don't know that many people actually have to be in on a lie to sell it. That's just my opinion, but I
understand.
Yeah,
okay.
But it's a very controversial one, as you can probably tell, because I get a lot of people that are like, yes, right on, or now you're crazy. And it's fine. I just looking at it and understanding what we tried to say that we did without the technology to do it, and then losing most of the evidence. I don't know that I could ever, I'm at that point where it's like, I know it didn't happen, but I know a lot of people will take certain things and say, yes, it did. Okay. What I'm trying to say is things are used in timing for emotional patriotism. And we need to be really careful when we look at emotional patriotism to get us to buy into the things that they really want to do and the things that they use to get us there. And I think right now we're being used a lot with what the deep state wants to do with war, what the deep state wants to do about the Middle East. There's certain goals of the Zion Project that were set out in the 1940s that are coming true about this bigger and bigger piece of land for Israel, and the deep state that runs Israel, and has nothing to do with the people, but the deep state that runs that country. And I think that they try to get us off on emotional patriotism in order to accept what they're trying to do, the goals, the agenda. So that's why I even brought it up.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I go back to what I said at the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm.
For me, with my students at least,
Mm-hmm.
I want to convince them that two things can be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That there can be rival major issues like a war and a space shot that could theoretically be both true, or or if one is false, that doesn't mean the other one has to be either. And so again, like I said, so let me ask you, have you had this conversation with your dad?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so how does he handle that?
He doesn't. He doesn't handle it well because he says to me, "Well, I worked on the capsule." And I'm like, "Yep." Just like with 9/11, there were a lot of people that were working in government for 9/11, but they're going to believe that their part or what they were doing, or maybe they were in the Air Force and they were sent out for the drill that was 9/11. At the same time 9/11 was actually happening, they were sent an hour away. That's why planes didn't go up to those planes, right? Is because the Air Force didn't travel right up to those planes, which they should have, because they were sent out on a drill. So that Air Force person can go, "Well, I was sent out on a drill. It's just a coincidence." Or my dad can say, "Well, I worked on the capsule." It still doesn't make the actual moon landing real, though, because he wasn't there witnessing the landing. He worked on a capsule. Government money went to work in this facility to work on the capsule. Okay. So when you sell a lie, you got to sell a lot of realistic parts of the lie so that a lot of people can chime in and go, "Well, I worked on this and I was there and I was in the control room." If you're in a control room, okay, and you're seeing what you're seeing on screen, it doesn't mean that what's on screen isn't a lie. It just means that you're watching something that you really do think is happening. So I do think a lot of people can be lied to. I think there's a lot of bait and switch that happens with government.
Human beings are made to be lied to. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, we're very gullible.
We're kind of at the end of our hour, but let me ask this. I gave you my prediction.
Okay.
What is your formal prediction about what's going to happen at the deadline tonight? To recap, mine is I think the Iranians are going to try to last ditch minute try to throw something on the table to see if they can postpone it. And if they don't, I think Trump's going to do very, very bad things to that country. That's my prediction. What do you think's going to happen?
It's hard to know. Usually it's kind of like I look at the last month and they play out the back and forth. So I think there's more back and forth because they seem to want to play that out as a distraction while money keeps going and being funneled and we keep being in some weird fight that, why are we there again? I just ask that because people need to go back to the beginning and ask, why are we there? Why is this our fight? What's going on here? And then of course, the only answer we get back is a very emotional one, right? We can't let people live in tyranny. Well, we stood by for 40 years while this has been going on. Why now? So if it's a timing thing, then it's all about distraction. So I would say that it goes on and maybe there's more brought to the table so that we think that
when you say, well, more goes on, do you mean there'll be
a more back and forth, not an ultimatum tonight, but more back and forth. They did this or they said this. Now we're going to say this. They'll keep it going. So the
bottom line is that there will be no military intervention tonight.
No, I wouldn't think so based on what I've seen prior. Just like with Ukraine and Russia, there were these big ultimatums that came and then nothing ever happened because they wanted to keep that ongoing because they're funneling money to them. It's a big money laundering operations for rebuilding Ukraine. So I do. And I say that with a straight face because I remember him at Zelensky the year before the war asking for his country to be rebuilt as a smart country. I do think there's a lot of money in the rebuilding. But what I'm saying is that I think it'll go on. I think the back and forth will go on for a while. I do. I wouldn't think that there would be a huge ultimatum tonight. I think that they'll play this out longer. There will at some point, I think, be a bigger interaction of war over there that they'll draw us into. It's kind of like war and rumors of war. We use the rumor of war a lot to get people scared, looking at headlines 24/7, scared and willing to give up more liberty. There's a lot more liberty to even be taken. So I do think they'll play it out longer. So I don't know. Now, some people think, like LB thinks on Facebook, I think stuff's going to happen tonight. It could. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't. It's just that the way they usually operate is to drag it along a little bit more. Because I would think that the thing that would draw us into a war, to have people rah the war even more than they are now, would be something happening here by a false flag, blamed on Iran.
Yep, and I do think that if you're right, then the Iranians are going to go through the kabuki and offer something that will allow us to keep talking.
Yes.
So that's possible, right?
Because I do think nothing's going to sell a war over there, what the deep state wants, more than a false flag over here. Something happening over here, but blamed on Iran, not actually not actually done by Iran, but done by our CIA, who are despicable. So I do think that's coming. I don't know. I don't think it's coming right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be able to check in next week to see how it goes.
I mean, who knows, right? But yeah, just kind of looking at the past, they usually drag it out a little bit more because they have to get us emotional about a war. I'm not sure that people are emotional about it yet. A false flag over here would certainly make people emotional. Look what we did at 9/11. We didn't even care who we went to war with. We were like, we'll go to war with anyone just because we are that angry at what happened. We had every right to be angry at watching people fall to their death, which did happen. But it doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want and go. But we did the bidding of the deep state in that. We were more than happy to go to war with Iraq, even though Iraq had nothing to do with what actually happened at 9/11. So that's why I think that they're banking on the fact that a false flag would get us emotional and more pro-war. I think that has to happen first.
I look forward to this conversation next week.
Yeah, we'll see where we're at. I could be totally wrong, but yes, we'll see. I really appreciate Duke for coming on and debating all of this and having these talks, because a lot of people wouldn't. And I do love that about you, Duke. I've known you for a long time, and I do love that you're willing to have a conversation always.
What you said at the beginning. Listen to everybody.
Yes.
And so that's what we're doing. We're bringing two different things to the table.
Yes.
And I hope everybody listens to all of it.
I do too. Thank you so much. Of course. And thank you. I'll be back tomorrow. And of course, and then we have Thursday show. And by the way, I'm putting Chris Ann Hall's special broadcast today at noon. It was 40 minutes. And I'm actually going to put that up for you guys. And I'll put it on YouTube. It's on Facebook right now if you guys want to see it. I'm getting it on YouTube, but it just hasn't happened yet. So I'm working on that. I've got to do that after the show. But I just wanted to tell you thanks for hearing me out, though, because it's hard to say these things at this point because everyone is so keyed into what they want to hear. And that's the hard part about doing what I do, is that people want to hear only what they want to hear. It's kind of like going back to that guy that told me that I was negative and that he had to have somebody super positive. And it's kind of like going to a doctor and having stage 4, but you want the doctor to tell you that you either don't have cancer or stage 1 that's beatable. And I get so tired of our naive, crazy, weird annihilation of what truth is so that we can just feel good. Like we're just in this feel good measure. And I have no patience for that. I always think, what is wrong with people that they are such waifs? And so I think it's really important to address the truth as the truth and to understand and do more research to know what's going on, to really evaluate what the deep state's doing and how they've operated in the past. You can learn a lot about that, about how they operate now. So I could be completely wrong tonight, but I actually don't think that it's going to be as dire, and without a false flag, we're going to see a false flag first before that goes into effect. That's my prediction. I hate predictions, but that's my prediction right now. I sure appreciate you guys doing this. Be sure and go to cardiomiracle.com/Kate. See, seriously drinking it right now because it's helping me. It's like the only thing that's helping me right now with minerals, vitamins. It's like magic in a bottle. It's amazing. Cardiomiracle.com/Kate. Please get your health back. We need you. And then also go to the website, mypillow.com, and also the remineralization of teeth. Also go and get the ebook about cancer. Keep that on your computer. Go get it right now at katetalks.myshopify.com. Kate Talks with an S.myshopify.com. Go get the ebook right now. It's on the website, katedalleyradio.com. Go get it, please. Be faithful, be fearless. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, you guys.